3 weeks had passed since the Endeavour touched down on Kepler 447c. In that time, the colonists had learned to fear the dawn. The face stalkers hunted in the early morning hours, when the light was gray and uncertain and the shadows still held power. They would appear without warning, blinking into existence just long enough to grab their prey before vanishing again. The colonists had lost 14 drones to them. 2 supply vehicles had been destroyed when the creatures teleported inside and tore apart the machinery. Specialist Ryan Cooper had nearly been killed when a stalker appeared directly behind him during a patrol. Only the quick reflexes of his partner, who had pushed him out of the way at the last second, had saved his life. The weapons helped, but they were not enough. The phase stalkers learned quickly. They memorized patrol patterns. They found blind spots in the sensor coverage. They tested the fence every night, looking for weaknesses, retreating before the security teams could mount an effective response. Daniel Price stood in the command center, studying the map of their perimeter. Red dots marked every incursion, every attack, every near miss. The dots were clustering on the eastern fence line, where the jungle grew thickest and the terrain gave the stalkers the most cover. "We cannot keep playing defense," he said. "Every day we lose ground. Every day they learn more about us. If we do not change our strategy, they will eventually find a way through." Katie Morgan stepped forward. She had been waiting for this moment since they landed. "The wolves are ready, Commander. Luna and her pack have been training in the enclosed area for 2 weeks. They understand that this is their new territory. They are ready to defend it." Dr. Samantha Hayes nodded in agreement. "The phase stalkers rely on ambush tactics. They are not built for sustained combat. If we can take away their element of surprise, if we can make them the prey instead of the hunters, they will lose their advantage." Daniel looked at the 2 women. He trusted them completely. But what they were proposing was a risk. If the wolves failed, if Earth's predators proved unequal to the challenge, morale would collapse. The colonists were already nervous. Some had started talking about evacuation. "Do it," he said. "First light tomorrow." The morning came gray and cold, mist rising from the jungle floor like smoke from a fire. Katie Morgan stood at the edge of the eastern fence line, her hand resting on the release mechanism for Unit 23. Behind her, the other wolf handlers had positioned themselves at their assigned release points. 17 wolves would enter the jungle today. They would either prove that Earth's predators could compete with the monsters of this world, or they would die trying. Luna pressed against the gate of her containment unit, her golden eyes fixed on the jungle beyond. She could smell them out there. The strange creatures that had been circling the territory. The things that did not belong. Her pack stood behind her, 7 wolves with fur ranging from pure white to charcoal gray. They were the descendants of animals that had hunted mammoths and survived ice ages. Their ancestors had fought cave bears and saber-toothed cats and survived. Now they faced something new. "Go," Katie whispered and opened the gate. Luna moved like water flowing downhill, smooth and silent and unstoppable. Her pack followed in perfect formation, spreading out in a pattern that had been refined over millions of years of evolution. They did not run. Running would waste energy. Instead, they trotted, steady and patient, their noses working constantly to read the story written in scent. The face stalkers noticed them within minutes. The colonists watched through the drone. Feeds as the alien creatures gathered in a loose group, their scales shifting colors as they communicated with each other. They seemed confused. They had never encountered anything like wolves before. Nothing on this planet hunted in packs like this. Nothing worked together with such silent coordination. The first attack came from the largest stalker, a creature twice the size of Luna. It teleported directly into the middle of the pack, jaws open and claws extended, expecting to scatter the strange animals and pick them off one by one. It was the last mistake the creature ever made. Luna did not flinch. She did not run. Instead, She pivoted, her teeth finding the stalker's throat before it had fully materialized. Two other wolves hit it from the sides, driving it to the ground. The creature tried to teleport away, but wolf jaws were already locked around its limbs, holding it in place. The displacement field flickered and died as the stalker's concentration shattered. The whole attack took less than 3 seconds. The other face stalkers watched in what the colonists could only interpret as shock. Their pack hunting strategy relied on overwhelming their prey with numbers and confusion. But the wolves did not panic. They did not scatter. They simply absorbed the attack and turned it against their enemy. Luna released her grip on the dead stalker and looked directly at the remaining creatures. Her eyes held no fear, only patience, only the calm certainty of a predator who knew exactly what she was capable of. The second stalker attacked, and the wolves were ready. This time, they did not wait for the creature to materialize. Luna had been watching the patterns, reading the tiny shifts in air pressure that preceded each teleportation. She knew where the stalker would appear before it arrived. When the creature blinked into existence, she was already there, her pack already in position to cut off its escape. Dr. Samantha Hayes watched from the command center, tears forming in her eyes. "They are predicting the teleportation patterns," she whispered. "They are learning faster than the stalkers can adapt." The battle lasted less than an hour. By the time the sun had fully risen, 3 face stalkers lay dead in the undergrowth. Luna's pack had taken some injuries. One wolf had a gash on its shoulder from a claw strike. Another had twisted a leg when a stalker tried to teleport while in its grip. But they were all alive. And they were all still fighting. The remaining stalkers retreated deeper into the jungle, their blue eyes filled with something that looked very much like fear. That night, for the first time since landing, the eastern fence line remained quiet. The sensors detected movement in the far distance, but nothing approached closer than a kilometer. The face stalkers were regrouping. They were trying to understand what had happened. They had been the apex predators of this region for thousands of years. Nothing had ever challenged them so effectively. Daniel Price walked the perimeter with Katie Morgan, watching as Luna and her pack patrolled the tree line. The wolves moved. Like ghosts, their gray fur blending with the shadows, their golden eyes catching the moonlight. "One species down," Katie said quietly. 46 to go. Daniel nodded. "And more wolves to deploy. More cats, more birds, more of everything we brought." He paused, watching Luna pause to sniff at something in the undergrowth. "How long until we can release the tigers?" "Another week for acclimatization. The bigger cats need more time to adjust to the atmospheric differences." Katie smiled. "But Atlas is getting restless. He knows there is hunting to be done." In the darkness beyond the fence, something screamed. It was not a face stalker. This sound was deeper, more resonant, coming from something much larger. The colonists had detected these creatures on their sensors, but had not yet seen them directly. Dr. Webb had named them dusk hunters based on their movement patterns. Luna's ears flattened against her skull, and she turned toward the sound. Her pack gathered around her, their bodies tense and ready. They could sense that something bigger was coming, something that would require more than 17 wolves to defeat. But they were not worried. Behind them, in the cargo holds of the Endeavor, 40 more species of Earth's predators waited for their turn. Tigers and lions and bears, eagles and hawks and owls, Komodo dragons and honey badgers and hyenas. This world had no idea what was coming. The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched upward like the inside of a cathedral, its walls covered in symbols from 100 different civilizations. Light filtered down from somewhere far above, casting everything in a soft blue glow. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their designated sections, each adapted to their particular biological needs. Some breathed different gases. Some required water. Some floated in anti-gravity fields because their bodies could not handle even the gentle artificial gravity of the station dot in the center of the chamber. A holographic display showed a planet. It was beautiful in the way that dangerous things are often beautiful. Deep green continents spread across its surface, wrapped in white clouds and surrounded by blue oceans. To any human watching, it would have looked like a paradise. Ambassador Vexthal of the Kolvani species stood before the display, his 4 eyes scanning the human delegation that sat in the visitors section. The Kolvani were an old species, one of the founding members of the council. They had seen many younger civilizations rise and fall. They had watched countless species reach for the stars, only to be crushed by the harsh realities of the universe. The humans had arrived in galactic society only 50 years ago. In that short time, they had spread to a dozen worlds, established trade routes, and built a reputation for being stubborn beyond all reason. The Kolvani found them fascinating and troubling in equal measure. This world is called Kepler 447c in your naming system, Vexthal announced, his voice carrying through the chamber with the help of translation devices. It has been Forbidden's territory for 3,000 of your years. 17 different species have attempted to colonize it during that time. All of them failed. Commander Daniel Price sat at the front of the human delegation, his gray uniform crisp and his posture relaxed. He was 52 years old, with short brown hair that was starting to go gray at the temples and a face that had seen too much sun on too many different worlds. Beside him sat his senior staff. Lieutenant Katie Morgan handled tactical operations. Dr. Marcus Webb led the science team. Dr. Samantha Hayes specialized in animal behavior and ecology. What happened to the colonies? Daniel asked. His voice was calm, almost casual, as if he were asking about the weather. Vexthal's scaled skin rippled, a sign of discomfort that the humans had learned to recognize. They were destroyed, not by disease, not by environmental factors, not by each other. He paused, letting the words sink in. They were destroyed by the native life forms. A murmur went through the chamber. Several representatives shifted in their seats. The fauna of Kepler 447c is unlike anything else in known space, Vexthal continued. The planet is dominated by predatory species of extreme capability. Pack hunters that coordinate their attacks with military precision. Ambush predators that can remain motionless for days, waiting for prey. Creatures that can see in complete darkness, track by heat signature, or sense electrical impulses. Some are armored heavily enough to resist standard weapons. Some carry venom that can kill within seconds. He touched a control, and the holographic display changed. Now it showed images captured by previous expeditions. Massive creatures with too many legs. Flying things with wingspans wider than aircraft. Something that looked like a cross between a spider and a tank, covered in black chitinous armor. The Drala sent 12,000 soldiers to claim this world, Vexthal said quietly. They were a warrior species. Combat was their culture, their religion, their way of life. They brought heavy weapons, armored vehicles, and orbital support capabilities. He let the silence stretch. 93 of them escaped. The rest were killed within 6 months. Dr. Marcus Webb leaned forward slightly, his eyes fixed on the images. He was a thin man in his 40s, with wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of quiet intensity that came from spending decades studying things that most people preferred not to think about. Beside him, Dr. Samantha Hayes was taking notes on her tablet, her expression thoughtful rather than frightened. "We understand the risks," Daniel said. "Humanity has formally requested colonization, rights to Kepler 447c. We intend to proceed with our settlement mission." The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted in a dozen different languages, their translators struggling to keep up. Some expressed outrage. Some expressed concern. A few seemed almost amused, as if watching children play with fire. Vexthil raised his hand for silence. When the noise finally died down, he spoke directly to the human commander. You do not understand what you are asking. This is not bravery. This is not determination. This is extinction. Your species has been part of galactic civilization for barely 50 cycles. You have accomplished much in that time, but you have no experience with threats of this magnitude. Daniel stood, and something in his movement caused the nearby representatives to lean back slightly. There was nothing threatening in his posture. He was simply a man rising from his chair. But there was something in the way he carried himself, something ancient and patient, that made the other species uncomfortable without knowing why. With great respect, Ambassador, I think you may be operating under a misunderstanding. Daniel smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. You see Kepler 447c, and you see a death world. A planet so dangerous that no civilized species could survive there. He walked toward the holographic display, stopping just at its edge. The images of alien predators flickered around him. But Ambassador, we humans come from a death world ourselves. Earth was not kind to our ancestors. We evolved alongside creatures that wanted to eat us. Lions, tigers, wolves, bears, crocodiles, sharks, venomous snakes and spiders. Packs of wild dogs and swarms of stinging insects. He turned to face the assembly. For millions of years, we were not the apex predators of our planet. We were prey. Small, weak, slow, with no claws or fangs or armor to protect us. By every measure, we should have gone extinct. Katie Morgan stood and moved to join her commander. So did Dr. Webb and Dr. Samantha Hayes. They formed a small group at the center of the Great Chamber, surrounded by representatives of species that had conquered the stars while humanity was still learning to make fire. But we did not go extinct, Daniel continued. We survived. And we did not survive by becoming stronger than the predators or faster than the prey. We survived by doing something that no other species in the galaxy seems to have done. We made friends with the monsters. He nodded to Katie, who activated her own tablet. New images appeared in the holographic display. Images from Earth. A man standing beside a wolf, both of them looking at the camera with the same patient intensity. A woman riding on the back of an elephant. Children playing with dogs 5 times their size. Farmers working alongside horses and oxen. Hunters walking with falcons on their arms. We are not going to Kepler 447c alone, Daniel said. We are bringing our oldest allies with us. The creatures that taught us how to hunt and how to guard and how to survive. Vexthil stared at the images, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. You are bringing animals from your homeworld? As weapons? Not as weapons, Dr. Samantha Hayes spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft but carried clearly through the chamber. As partners. As family. As friends. She smiled at the alien bastard, and there was something in her expression that he could not read. Something that looked almost like pity. You see, Ambassador, humans do not see dangerous creatures and think about how to destroy them. We see dangerous creatures and think about how to understand them, how to work with them, how to earn their trust. Daniel nodded. Kepler 447c has hostile fauna. So did Earth, and we are still here. He turned and walked back toward the human delegation, his staff following behind him. At the door, he paused and looked back at the assembled representatives of the Galactic Council. We will send regular reports. You are welcome to observe if you wish. But I would advise you to wait at least a year before writing your obituaries for humanity. The door closed behind them, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. The colony ship Endeavour broke through the clouds of Kepler 447c on a morning that no human had ever seen before. The ship was massive, almost a kilometer long, built to carry not just colonists, but everything they would need to start a new civilization. Hydroponics bays, manufacturing equipment, medical facilities, and in the deepest cargo holds, 47 containment units that held something far more valuable than any piece of equipment. Commander Daniel Price stood on the bridge as the ship descended toward the northern continent. Through the forward windows, he could see the landscape spreading out beneath them. Endless jungle covered the lowlands, a carpet of green and purple vegetation that moved constantly in the wind. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks white with something that might have been snow or might have been something else entirely. A great river cut through the terrain below, silver and wide, winding its way toward an ocean they could not yet see. "The landing zone is clear," Lieutenant Katie Morgan reported from her station. "I am reading no large life forms within the immediate perimeter. But there is movement in the tree line. A lot of movement." Daniel nodded. They had expected this. The creatures of Kepler 447c were not mindless beasts. Previous expeditions had noted that the predators seemed to watch, to learn, to wait for the right moment to strike. They would be watching now, trying to understand this new thing that had fallen from the sky. "Set us down," Daniel ordered. "Begin deployment protocols as soon as we touch ground." The landing was smooth. The Endeavour settled onto the plateau they had selected from orbit, its massive landing strut sinking slightly into the soft soil. Around them, the alien jungle stretched in every direction. Beautiful and deadly. Dr. Marcus Webb was the first to step outside, accompanied by a security team carrying heavy weapons. He held a device that measured atmospheric composition, radiation levels, and a dozen other factors that could kill humans in unpleasant ways. After a long moment, he nodded. "Air is breathable. Slightly higher oxygen content than Earth, which will give our partners extra energy. No immediately dangerous pathogens detected, though we should maintain quarantine protocols for the first few weeks." Dr. Samantha Hayes followed him out. Her own equipment focused on the sounds and movements of the jungle around them. She could hear things calling in the distance. Some of the sounds were almost familiar. Bird calls, insect buzzing, the rustle of things moving through undergrowth. Others were completely alien. A low thrumming that seemed to come from underground. A clicking pattern that repeated in complex sequences. Something very far away that sounded almost like laughter. "They are communicating," she said quietly. "The predators. They are telling each other about us." Daniel emerged from the ship and stood beside his science team. The air was thick and warm, heavy with moisture and strange smells. It reminded him of the Amazon rainforest on Earth, which he had visited years ago during a training exercise. That jungle had been dangerous too, filled with creatures that could kill a careless human in countless ways. But humans had lived in the Amazon for thousands of years. They had learned its rhythms and its rules. They would learn this place too. "Begin perimeter construction," he ordered. "I want the fence line established before nightfall." "Dr. Hayes, how are our passengers?" Samantha smiled. "Restless. They can smell the new world. They want to explore." The containment units were arranged in the deepest hold of the ship, each one carefully climate-controlled and monitored by dedicated systems. Walking among them was like walking through a museum of Earth's most successful predators. Here was a pack of gray wolves from the recovery programs of Yellowstone, their amber eyes tracking every movement. There was a pride of African lions, the largest male nearly 300 kilograms of muscle and instinct. Beyond them, a group of Bengal tigers paced in their enclosures, their stripes making them look like shadows given form. But the collection went far beyond the obvious choices. There were Australian dingoes, lean and intelligent, bred by the harsh conditions of Earth's most dangerous continent. There were African wild dogs, whose pack coordination was so sophisticated that biologists considered them the most successful hunters on Earth. There were cheetahs for speed, leopards for stealth, Komodo dragons for their deadly bite and their complete lack of fear. The birds had their own section. Golden eagles with wingspans that could block out the sun. Harris hawks that hunted in groups like wolves of the sky. Great horned owls for the night work. Peregrine falcons, the fastest animals Earth had ever produced. And there were others. Honey badgers, small but absolutely fearless, capable of driving lions away from their kills. Spotted hyenas, whose jaws could crush bone and whose social intelligence rivaled the great apes. Black bears and grizzly bears, massive and powerful but also surprisingly gentle when they chose to be. Katie Morgan walked among the containment units, checking each one personally. She stopped at Unit 23, where a massive gray wolf lay watching her with calm golden eyes. This was Luna, the alpha female of the Yellowstone pack. Katie had worked with wolves for 15 years before joining the colonial service. She understood them in ways that most humans could not. "Soon, girl," she murmured, pressing her palm against the glass. "Soon you can run again." Luna's ears perked forward, and she made a soft sound in her throat. Not a growl, not a whine, something in between. A sound of acknowledgement, of trust. Outside, the work continued. Construction drones laid the foundation for the electrified fence that would mark their initial perimeter. Teams set up sensor arrays that would detect movement, heat signatures, and the electromagnetic disturbances that some of the local predators apparently generated. Prefabricated shelters began to take shape. Each one hardened against environmental hazards and potential attacks as the sun began to set, painting the alien sky in shades of orange and purple. The first local creature made its move. The sensors detected it before anyone could see it. A thermal signature, moving fast through the undergrowth toward the eastern fence line. Then another. Then a dozen more. "Phase stalkers," Dr. Webb reported, reading the data streams. "They are testing our perimeter." The creatures appeared in flashes of displaced air, blinking into existence for just a moment before vanishing again. They had 6 legs and bodies covered in scales that seemed to shift color with each teleportation. Their eyes glowed a faint blue, and their mouths were filled with teeth designed for tearing flesh. The security teams raised their weapons, but Daniel held up his hand. "Wait, let them test the fence. Let them learn that we are not easy prey." The phase stalkers probed the perimeter for almost an hour, teleporting closer and closer, trying to find a gap in the defenses. The electric fence sparked each time they got too close, driving them back with jolts of pain. Eventually, as the last light faded from the sky, they retreated into the jungle, but they did not go far. The sensors showed them gathering in the tree line, watching, waiting. That night, as the colonists settled into their temporary shelters and tried to sleep despite the alien sounds outside, Daniel called his senior staff to the command center. "Tomorrow we begin the real work," he said, looking at each of them in turn. "The fence will not hold forever. The weapons will not be enough. If we want to survive here, we need to stop being defenders. We need to become hunters." He turned to Katie Morgan. "How soon can the wolves be ready?" Katie smiled. "They've been ready for 60 million years, Commander. They just need someone to point them in the right direction." Outside, in the darkness of an alien world, 47 species of Earth's most successful predators waited in their containment units. They could smell the new scents. They could hear the strange calls. They could feel the tension in the air. Soon, they would show this world what it meant to face the survivors of Earth. 6 months after the humans landed on Kepler 447c, the Galactic Council sent an observation team to document the expected failure. They arrived in a small diplomatic vessel, fully expecting to find ruins, scattered remains, and perhaps a few traumatized survivors waiting for evacuation. What they found instead changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about the young species from Earth. Observer Kethran of the Veloci Collective was the first to step off the landing ramp. He was a tall being, nearly 3 meters in height, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that could see across multiple light spectrums. His people were scientists and record keepers. They had documented the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. He had seen every possible way that colonization could go wrong. He had never seen anything like this. The human colony stretched across the plateau in neat rows of buildings. Agricultural domes glittered in the morning light, their transparent surfaces revealing fields of green growing inside. Construction crews were working on the foundations for new structures, expanding the settlement in every direction. Vehicles moved along packed earth roads. Children played in a fenced yard near what appeared to be a school. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, there were animals. A massive orange cat padded past Kethran, so close that he could have reached out and touched its fur. Its handler, a young woman named Megan Torres, walked beside it with the casual confidence of someone taking a pet for a morning stroll. The cat was enormous, easily 300 kilograms, with black stripes across its body and eyes that seemed to look right through the alien observer. "That is Atlas," Commander Daniel Price said, appearing at Kethran's side. "He is a Bengal tiger, one of the most successful predators Earth ever produced." Kethran's translator struggled with the concept. "You walk beside it, without weapons, without barriers." "Atlas and I have an understanding," Megan said, scratching the tiger behind one massive ear. Atlas made a sound deep in his chest, a rumbling that Kethran could feel in his bones. "He protects the colony. I make sure he gets fed and scratched in all the right places. It works out well for both of us." The tour of the colony took most of the day. Kethran and his team documented everything, their recording devices capturing images that would be studied by xenobiologists across the galaxy for decades to come. In the eastern sector, where the Face Stalkers had once terrorized the colonists, a pack of wolves ran patrol alongside human rangers. Their handler, a woman named Katie Morgan, explained that the wolves had completely eliminated the stalker threat within the first 2 months. The creatures had retreated so far into the deep jungle that the sensors rarely detected them anymore. "They learned," Katie said simply. "Predators are smart. They figured out that hunting near our territory was not worth the cost." The southern swamps had been the domain of creatures that Dr. Marcus Webb called venom drakes. They were massive reptilian things, armored and poisonous, capable of bringing down prey 10 times their size. 3 separate alien species had lost colonists to them during previous settlement attempts. The humans had released their Komodo dragons into the swamps. The Komodo dragons were smaller than the venom drakes, but they were completely immune to the local poisons. More importantly, their bite carried bacteria that had evolved over millions of years to bring down large prey. The venom drakes had no resistance to these alien microorganisms. Within a month, the dragons had established dominance over the entire swamp region. Kethran watched as a handler named Kevin Wright led a group of the massive lizards along the edge of the swamp. The dragons moved with a slow, patient confidence that reminded him of ancient stories about monsters from his own world's prehistory. "The swamps are safe now," Kevin said. "Well, safer. You still would not want to go swimming in there. But the drakes have learned to stay away from our territory. The sky belonged to the birds. Golden eagles and Harris hawks patrolled in overlapping patterns, their keen eyes scanning for threats. The carrion wings, flying creatures that had wiped out an entire aerial division of the Dralith military, had been driven back to the mountains. They still appeared sometimes, circling at a distance, but they no longer attacked. Dr. Samantha Hayes explained the strategy. Carrion wings rely on numbers. They swarm their prey and overwhelm it. But our raptors attack from above, diving at incredible speeds. The wings cannot match that kind of precision. They are pack hunters facing specialized assassins. As she spoke, a peregrine falcon shot past overhead, moving so fast that Catherine could barely track it. The bird had spotted something in the distance and was already diving to intercept, but it was the afternoon demonstration that truly broke Catherine's understanding of humans. Dr. Webb led the observation team to a large enclosure near the edge of the colony. Inside, a group of young humans were working with a variety of Earth animals. Children as young as 10 were practicing commands with dogs and falcons. Teenagers were learning to read the body language of big cats. Even the youngest colonists were being taught how to work with creatures that could kill them with a single swipe. "You teach your young to handle predators," Catherine said, his voice flat with disbelief. "We teach our young to understand predators," Samantha corrected. "There is a difference. Fear is useful, but understanding is more valuable. These children will grow up knowing how to read the mood of a tiger or the intentions of a wolf pack. They will know when an animal is comfortable and when it is threatened. They will know how to work with these creatures as partners rather than trying to dominate them as slaves." A girl of perhaps 12 years old approached one of the training areas. She was small for her age, with brown hair tied back and a practical ponytail. Her name was Olivia, and she had arrived on the colony as part of the second wave of settlers 3 months ago. In the training area, 3 massive shapes waited. They were creatures from Kepler 447c itself. Shadowmaws, the apex predator of the planet, the species that had destroyed entire armies. They were enormous, covered in black fur, with 6 legs and jaws that could crush stone. Every alien species that had ever landed on this world had learned to fear them. Olivia walked into the enclosure. Without hesitation, Catherine lunged forward, certain that he was about to witness a child being killed. But Daniel Price caught his arm and held him back. "Watch," the commander said softly. Olivia approached the largest shadowmaw slowly, her movements calm and deliberate. She held out her hand, palm down, letting the creature sniff her scent. The shadowmaw's nostrils flared. Its massive head swung toward her. For a long, terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the creature lowered itself to the ground and rolled onto its back, exposing its belly. Olivia laughed and dropped to her knees beside it, scratching the thick fur of its chest. The shadowmaw made a sound that could only be described as a purr. "That is impossible," Catherine whispered. "The shadowmaw cannot be tamed. It cannot be controlled. It has killed thousands." "We did not tame it," Samantha said. "We befriended it. There is a difference." She watched Olivia play with the massive predator, her expression soft with something that looked like pride. Humans spent millions of years learning to understand the predators of Earth. We learned that most dangerous creatures are not evil. They are just hungry or scared or protecting their territory. If you can understand their needs, if you can communicate with them in ways they understand, you can build trust. Daniel stepped forward to stand beside the alien observer. The shadowmaws are pack creatures. They have complex social hierarchies, just like wolves. Olivia understood that. She spent weeks just sitting near their habitat, letting them get used to her presence. She learned their body language. She learned what sounds they make when they are happy, and what sounds they make when they are upset. Eventually, they accepted her as part of their pack. Catherine watched as 2 more shadowmaws approached Olivia, their massive bodies moving with surprising gentleness. The girl was completely surrounded by creatures that could kill her in an instant. And she was laughing. "You did not conquer this world," Catherine said slowly. You did not defeat its predators. No, Daniel agreed. We joined them. 1 year after the humans landed on Kepler 447c, Ambassador Vexthal of the Corvani returned to the world that had killed 17 civilizations. He came alone this time, leaving his diplomatic staff on the station orbiting above. He wanted to see for himself what the observation team had reported. He wanted to understand how the impossible had become reality. Governor Daniel Price met him at the landing pad. The human had changed in the past year. His hair was grayer now, and there were new lines around his eyes. But he stood taller than before, with the easy confidence of a man who had accomplished something remarkable. "Welcome back, Ambassador," Daniel said. "The colony is glad to receive you." 2 large dogs flanked the governor, their pointed ears alert and their dark eyes watching the alien visitor with intelligent curiosity. They were Belgian Malinois, Daniel explained, a breed that humans had developed for protection and detection work. Their senses were sharp enough to notice things that human eyes and ears would miss. Several times over the past year, they had alerted the colony to approaching threats before any technological sensor had detected danger. The colony had grown beyond anything Vexthal could have imagined. Nearly 3,000 humans now lived on Kepler 447c, spread across 4 separate settlements, connected by roads that cut through the once impassable jungle. Agricultural production had exceeded initial projections. Mining operations had begun in the southern mountains. A small spaceport was under construction to receive cargo, ships from Earth. But it was not the buildings or the technology that captured Vexthal's attention. It was the life that moved between them. Everywhere he looked, he saw the partnership that the observation team had described. Wolves trotted alongside human patrol teams, their noses constantly working to read the air. Hawks circled overhead in coordinated patterns, diving occasionally to relay information to handlers on the ground through a complex system of signals. A group of honey badgers had been deployed to the agricultural domes, where their fearless nature and digging abilities made them perfect for clearing out burrowing pests. "You have transformed this world," Vexthal said as they walked through the central settlement. Daniel shook his head. "We did not transform it. We found our place in it." He gestured toward a group of children playing in a nearby field. Several dogs ran with them, and a young tiger cub that was being raised as part of the colony's breeding program. "The predators of Kepler 447c are not our enemies. They never were. They were just animals trying to survive, same as any creature on any world." The tour continued through the afternoon. Vexthal saw the river settlements, where a pod of bottlenose dolphins had established dominance over the waterways. The dolphins had been modified for the alien environment, their lungs adapted to handle the different atmospheric composition. They patrolled the rivers with the same playful intelligence they had shown on Earth, driving away the aquatic predators that had made water travel impossible for previous colonists. He saw the mountain outpost, where a group of snow leopards had been released to claim the high ground. The creatures were perfectly suited to the cold peaks, their thick fur and powerful bodies allowing them to thrive where most Earth animals could not survive. They had already driven the carrion wings from their traditional nesting sites, breaking the aerial threat that had plagued the colony during the early months. He saw the swamp research station, where Dr. Marcus Webb was studying the local ecosystem with the help of his Komodo dragons. The massive lizards had proven invaluable for fieldwork, their presence keeping the venom drakes at a safe distance while the scientists collected samples and recorded data. The final stop was what Vexthal would remember for the rest of his long life: the Shadowmaw Sanctuary. Sat at the edge of the main settlement, separated from the other structures by a wide clearing. It was not a cage or a prison. There were no bars, no force fields, no weapons trained on the creatures inside. It was simply a space where the most dangerous predators on Kepler 447c had chosen to live alongside their human partners. Olivia was there, as she always was. The girl had become famous throughout the colony for her ability to communicate with the shadow moss. Other handlers had learned from her techniques, but she remained the best. The creatures trusted her completely, responding to her voice and her touch with an affection that seemed impossible for animals capable of such destruction. She was sitting in the grass when Vexthale arrived, surrounded by 5 adult shadow moss and 3 cubs that had been born just 2 months ago. The cubs were playing a game that looked remarkably like tag, chasing each other through the undergrowth while their parents watched with patient attention. The cubs, Vexthal breathed. They are breeding here, in the colony. Daniel nodded. The shadow moss have accepted us as part of their extended pack. They raise their young here because they feel safe, because they trust that we will not harm them. One of the cubs noticed the alien visitor and bounded over to investigate. It was already the size of a large dog, with paws that would eventually grow as big as dinner plates. It sniffed at Vexthal's robes, then made a chirping sound and ran back to rejoin its siblings. I do not understand, Vexthal said quietly. My people have studied thousands of species across hundreds of worlds. We have never seen anything like this. The ability to form bonds with creatures so different from yourselves. The patience to earn trust from animals that should see you only as prey. How is this possible? Dr. Samantha Hayes had joined them, walking beside a border collie named Scout. The dog had been instrumental in organizing the colony's imported livestock, using herding instincts refined over thousands of years to keep the animals calm and organized in their new environment. On Earth, Samantha said, humans were not the top of the food chain for most of our history. We were small and slow and weak. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. By every measure, we should have been eaten into extinction. She knelt to scratch Scout behind the ears. The dog leaned into her touch, tail wagging. But we survived. Not by becoming the strongest predator, but by becoming the best partners. We learned to work with wolves for hunting. We learned to work with horses for travel. We learned to work with dogs for protection and companionship. Over thousands of generations, we developed an instinct for understanding other creatures, for reading their emotions, for building trust. Daniel stepped forward to stand beside the ambassador. The Galactic Council sees predators as threats to be eliminated, obstacles to be overcome. But humans see predators as potential allies, partners waiting to be discovered. He turned to face Vexthal directly. You warned us that this planet had hostile fauna. You were right. But hostile does not mean evil. It just means misunderstood. The sun was beginning to set over Kepler 447c, painting the sky in colors that no human had seen before they arrived. In the fading light, the colony came alive with movement. Wolves returned from their patrols. Hawks descended to their handlers. Tigers emerged from their rest to begin the night watch that had become their responsibility. And in the sanctuary, the Shadowmaw cubs curled up beside Olivia to sleep, their massive bodies pressed against her small form as if she were one of their own. Vexthal watched it all with ancient eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. He had witnessed countless species reach for greatness only to be crushed by their own limitations. He had recorded the deaths of worlds, but this was something new. Something that rewrote everything he thought he understood about the young species from Earth. You did not conquer this world, he said finally. You did not defeat it. Daniel smiled. No, we joined it. We found our place in the ecosystem. We made friends with the monsters. He looked out at the colony, at the humans and animals working together in the gathering darkness. That is what humans do, Ambassador. We find dangerous things, and we learn to live beside them. The ambassador was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that surprised even Daniel. I believe, Vexthal said slowly, that the galaxy has underestimated your species. Daniel watched as a tiger padded past, its orange fur catching the last light of the setting sun. Most species do, but they learn eventually. And on a world that had killed 17 civilizations, humanity thrived. Not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as partners. As members of an ecosystem that stretched across the stars, the predators of Earth had found a new home. And together with their human companions, they would claim a place in a galaxy that had no idea what was coming.